All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the final session of the conference. As I've told you earlier, starting with the next session. And food security professional, Valentin Atchaoue is a seasoned cashew value chain specialist with a total of 15 years practical experience in the value chain across Africa. He has acquired his broad experience through his commitment to the development of the industry at regional level through various positions. Valentin began his career in the cashew sector as a regional business advisor for the African Cashew Initiative in Benin, Ghana, Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso under the aegis of TECHNOSERVE and GIZ, before joining the US multinational Red River Foods as operation manager for Benin in 2012. He returned to TECHNOSERVE as a part of Benin Kaju project as a processing manager, and since 2021, he is the supply chain and marketing lead for Prosper Cashew project, a 5-year USDA-funded project in West Africa. He's based in Abidjan and oversees operations in Ghana, Nigeria, and Ivory Coast. Let's have a round of applause for our session's chairperson, everyone. Next up, I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Wim Schipper. Do we have Mr. Wim Schipper already? Okay. Director, Intersnack Procurement, Mr. Schipper specializes in sourcing agricultural commodities worldwide and managing positions, supplier and supply chain development of products, quality, services, food and safety, B2B marketing and sales management, food ingredients and co-manufacturing, and he's a key account management. He holds key account management for blue chips and large local projects. Mr. Wim Schipper has over 34 years of experience in food industry and is an MBA from Anton Ergens Institute in Business Creation in Food and Health. Mr. Schipper will join us on the stage as and when he walks in. Our next speaker on the stage, I'd like to invite Mr. Arjen Ruggenberg. We have you up on the stage already, sir. Red River Foods, Vietnam. The commercial manager at Vietnam for Red River Foods. He's active in cashew industry for over 8 years and has a strong focus on developing the cashew supply chain in Vietnam together with some of company's main customers. Being PCQI certified, his expertise include, but are not limited to, food safety, labor safety, and social aspects of the staff, and full traceability of RCN throughout the factories. Our next speaker on the stage, Mr. Robert Tinsley, is already here. Everyone, let's give a round of applause to Mr. Robert Tinsley for before time delivery. Our next speaker, Mr. Sukesh Aggarwal from UB Group, a dynamic promoter of the esteemed UB Aggarwal Group that carries a 40-year legacy in diverse business ventures with an impressive annual turnover of $125 million US. Under his leadership, his company has become one of the largest cashew processing entities in North and Western India, and Sukesh oversees various businesses within the UB Aggarwal Group, which include ship recycling, lamb coke manufacturing, industrial gases, and cashew processing. Ladies and gentlemen, as I leave this session with our chairperson, let me tell you that Mr. Robert Saccoccio has already joined us online from Scalzo Food Industries. I leave this session with our chairperson, Mr. Valentin Senou, and this is our final session for the day. We've saved the best for last. Let's make it a happening one.
Thank you so much. I think we can all agree that this edition of World Cashew Conference is the best. If you agree with me, please put your hand together for WCC, for the organizers and the country. So this session is going to be the last, but not the least, actually. I'm actually happy to be here. We have 3 main objectives for this session. The first one is to understand how the cashew kernel demand was in 2023. The second one is to understand drivers of the market in 2024 and look at the expected demand. And then finally, to explore ways and means to promote cashew kernel consumption. So to begin this session, I would like us to look at some key facts for 2023. I've actually picked 5. If you can show the slide, please. Slide, please. Okay. So some key facts for 2023 that we need to look at. The first thing is the Ukraine and Russia war. This actually led to rising energy and commodity prices, slowing economic growth and global financial market turbulence. The second fact is the Israel and Palestine war, with its consequences being risk of international transport crisis because of the situation in Red Sea. And you know that Red Sea represents like 12% of the world trade. And more specifically about cashew, we saw an oversupply by end of 2022, coupled with good crop in 2023, which made cashew prices to come down and remain soft during 2023. We have African cashew kernel supply to US and the European market that keeps increasing because of the different initiatives in Africa in terms of raw cashew nut processing. And this increases, although the price is still not competitive compared to Vietnam. African price is sometimes 10 to 20% higher actually. But still, we are seeing more and more demand from Africa. And the last one, we saw Côte d'Ivoire that became the second biggest kernel exporter just after Vietnam. Now, let's dive into the subject. I would like to invite Mr. Sukesh for us to have an insight of the Indian market. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Finally, we are talking about kernels. After 2 days of talking about processing and RCN and procurements, kernels is the most important part when we talk about cashew. So, can I have my presentation, please? So, Aggarwal Company, a proud member of STM UB Aggarwal Group. Aggarwal Company, a proud member of STM UB Aggarwal Group, boasts 24-year-old legacy in diverse business activities. Our products are distributed to over 100 dealers across India and have earned the trust of many corporate giants like Reliance, Haldiram, Bikaner, etc. I'll skip talking about us so that we can talk about kernel more. The Indian cashew market is valued at USD 2.4 billion. It is likely to grow at a CAGR of 3.8% over the next 5 years and is likely to be valued at 2.9 billion by 2029. India is among the major cashew producing countries globally. According to India Brand Equity Foundation report in 2022, the Indian cashew industry is economically significant as it employs more than 10 lakh people in farms, factories, etc. Cashew is grown over 0.7 million hectares of land. India produces 0.8 million tons per annum. Cashew consumption in India and its challenges. Changing lifestyles and rising disposable incomes are expected to drive cashew market growth in India in the coming years. India remains the world's largest consumer of cashew, processing almost half of the global cashew kernels and consuming 40% of the global output. The United States is a distant second, accounting to 10 to 15% of the global consumption. The consumption of nuts in Western countries has stagnated due to war and inflation. At the recent INC Congress in London, the INC openly said the next key market for growth is India. The INC executive director, in her opening presentation, devoted more than 70% of time and energy to focus on what needs to be done to accelerate growth in India. The kernel demand has shrunk due to low demand in USA, Europe, and China. Almond Board of California, now this is a very important point which I want to discuss. Almond Board of California runs a very successful campaign in India, spending around $4 to $5 million annually in promotion. APG, American Pista Growers, have scaled up their marketing efforts in India as well. American Chilean walnut boards, hazelnut boards, macadamia growers, cranberries, blueberries in India have appointed marketing agencies to promote their products in India. The slow growth of cashew kernels in comparison to other nuts calls for a thorough analysis. We need to acknowledge the role played by promotion of alternative nuts in the market. In 2024, the industry anticipates a continued balance with supply and demand trends evolving in response to market forces, while projections indicate potential challenges such as low raw cashew prices affecting domestic production. The industry remains strong, adapting to changing dynamics. Consolidation. The consolidation of the cashew processing industry in India has been a net-worthy development, shaping sector's landscape and influencing various aspects. The consolidation has led to creation of streamlined and efficient operations. However, the impact on employment within the sector is twofold. While the consolidation has resulted in optimization of resources and increased efficiency, it has also led to workforce adjustment as some smaller units have had to undergo restructuring. On the export front, the consolidation has positioned the industry for a greater competitiveness in the global market. Larger entities are better equipped to meet international standards, fulfill bulk orders, and navigate export regulations. These are some export trends, figures. From 21-22, we have seen a good significant increase in export in 22-23, which is now declining due to stagnation in consumption of nuts in Western countries, increase in domestic consumption in India. So recently, our industry in India has been put under APIDA, Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority. It's a government organization which is now going to regulate the entire cashew industry in India. However, the challenges may emerge in the form of adaptation to new regulatory frameworks, the need for industry-wide compliance, and the optimization of supply chains. It has become imperative for all stakeholders to collaborate seamlessly under APIDA's guidance, thus ensuring the continued growth and sustainability of India's cashew export industry in the face of evolving global trade dynamics. APIDA may put a lot of regulations on us, but it will also help us in promoting the exports in India. In 2024, the trend is expected to showcase a more streamlined and organized approach to cashew exports, thus fostering higher standards and reliability for international buyers. Silver lining 2024. Global enthusiasm for the Indian market. The Indian cashew industry continues to be a magnet for global attention. In 2024, the world will look at India as a promising market, as our industry has already established itself strongly. India, with its vast consumer base, has the potential to absorb excess inventory, particularly with cashew being competitively priced. With reasonable pricing strategies in place, the Indian cashew market is well positioned to cater to the diverse preferences of consumers, both domestic and international. The combination of large consumer market and competitive pricing makes India an appealing destination for business that are looking to expand their presence in the cashew industry. As we navigate through 2024, the global demand for cashew, especially in Asia, has experienced a noteworthy revival. The Indian cashew industry is perfectly positioned to capitalize on this renewed demand. As the world looks to India as a promising market, the cashew industry is proud of its accomplishment and its ability to navigate challenges while capitalizing on emerging opportunities in the global market. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sukesh. There's going to be a question and answer session when you have the opportunity to ask questions. So I would like to invite Mr. Arjen Ruggenberg from Red River Food to give us an insight on the American market. Thank you.
Hi, Robert. Yeah, so the last session of the day, the last panel of the conference. My name is Arjen Ruggenberg. I work for Red River Foods Vietnam, but I'm going to guide you through the kernel market of the USA, as we're a USA-based company. So if I understand how this works, we can start. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so Red River Foods Vietnam, just to give a brief explanation of what we do there, we have 3 facilities basically in Vietnam, and we also do a lot of trading. But then again, for today, we're going to go through the cashew kernel market in the USA. So, let's go. Okay, so here a chart. So basically, we're just going to go through questions that were asked us to prepare in advance. And it's 5 minutes per export market, so we'll make it quick. We'll go through it briefly. But basically, you see here an overview from 2021 to 2023, last year. With a note that the numbers for December 2023 haven't been published yet by the FDA. But based on the export volumes from the Vinacas reports, we made an assumption that it would be approximately another 11,000 tons coming into the US for December. Hence, those numbers are in red. So yeah, what we see here is that there is a decrease, especially compared to 2021, and 2022 is a bit, yeah, it's a small decrease, but there are reasons for that, which we'll go through later. 2021 obviously was still a COVID year, where, yeah, in the US there was just a lot of material coming in, safety stocks being increased, also anticipation on the congestion in ports. So the 2021 numbers are just very high, but not the ones we should be expecting going forward. Probably 2022, 2023 are a better representation of the actual US market. So what we then also see, but it's not shown in this table, if you would divide the numbers, you see that the average price is coming down, and that we have seen throughout this conference several times already. And I guess everyone is also aware of that. So that is volume and value. Then one of the questions was, when is the demand peak seasons? And that's usually from a Vietnam perspective, from May till August. And then you see a small delay in this figure because it still has, let's say, a month of transit time before reaching the US. Yeah, and these are usually also preparations from the retailers towards the festive seasons, Christmas, Thanksgiving, the big USA parties. So, yeah, a quick overview, and then again, this is the table for 2023 only, because we believe that this represents a normal year compared to the COVID years, which weren't normal. A bit of water before we continue. So, yeah, this is just a point, again, was asked as well, but also that we like to raise with, we see not only in the US, but also in the EU, an increase in, in demand for special certified products. So everyone is asking for it. Do you have this certification, that certification? And yeah, the processors have to keep up with it, which is not always easy. And then once economic challenges come, you also see that this demand is dropping quite significantly. So in the end, yeah, we all want the good stuff, but if there needs to be paid for it, or economic-wise, people are in a bit of a tougher year, these kind of products start to lose traction. Sorry. So yeah, there are a few examples, and then we, you as a processor, you contract this kind of material to prepare, and then when the demand turns out to be less, yeah, you have to figure out what you're going to do with all of that. So anyway, it's part of processing. Your internet connection is unstable. Not anymore. Yeah, some emerging trends that we see. Mergers and acquisitions in the US from bigger roasters, taking over other companies, which can be beneficial for some and not beneficial for others. And also the vertical integration. So, for example, importers, like we did with Red River Foods in 2014, from being a traditional importer, starting to invest in processing, but also the other side, so processors becoming roasters, that kind of stuff. So roasting at origin is becoming increasingly interesting. Oil roasting, dry roasting, also pasteurization. So those are things that, yeah, we see an uptick in. More and more companies start to look into that. And that also creates those tables that we saw earlier to go down a little bit on the traditional bulk raw cashew kernel, because those numbers are not covering the value-added production that comes into the USA. Yeah, and then the butters, cheeses, meal and flour, things that get attention, but it's nothing booming. It's nothing compared to almonds or peanuts, those kind of products. So I think in the cashew market there's still a lot of development to be made on these products, and to really make consumers aware of of that it exists, and maybe also how you consume it. So yeah, emerging trends in the USA. Then we have red flags on cashew kernel quality. Foreign material is obviously one, which will always remain a thing, especially in the broken grades, the pieces, large pieces, small pieces, baby bits. Yeah, those are products that are prone to have foreign material inside. It takes a while to accumulate a full container of baby bits, you can imagine. So there's a lot of, it can come from several places, 3 tons here, 3 tons there. How was that product stored over there? So yeah, foreign material remains an ongoing challenge in cashew kernels. Then a bit of a newer topic is increased FDA interventions since last year. And basically, yeah, that started with the FDA taking out containers that were arriving into the USA and seeing soft, as these are their classifications, soft, gummy and pliable cashews that they consider to be decomposing, which has a total allowance of 5%, including the traditional serious defects of the cashews, like the mold and insects and those kind of defects. So yeah, the cargo on hold into the US, and then you are depending on the FDA, and that can take a while. So we see cargo being waiting there for 6 to 12 months, obviously very costly. You need to rework to take out things that aren't maybe that harmful for human consumption. But yeah, then again, it's government, so what can we do? Yeah, and then scrapes versus testa, that's a bit of an ongoing topic, which is maybe not too big, but we see there, it remains a thing like, okay, we want less scrapes or we want less testa, and it's basically one way or the other. So if you have more testa, the scrapes will be less. If you want to peel that testa off, you create more scrapes. So yeah, an ongoing topic for, yeah, maybe not too important. Then the last slide that we have here, demand drivers, both economic and geopolitical, as it was asked for. So what we see, we also traveled to come to this conference from Pleiku, Central Highlands, to Siem Reap by van to see the crops around Cambodia. And yeah, you see that Cambodia is really focusing, it's a specialized crop. A lot of big nuts, a lot of M23 plantations. So you can also, these kind of crops to be specified for China market, for example, and that Africa is focusing on more production, which makes more sense to Europe or USA as well. Yeah, and then the current interest rates on credit lines are obviously not helping. It's quite expensive compared to a few years ago. If you stock cargo and that kind of stuff, you want it to move. In the previous years, this was less of an issue, let's say pre-COVID. And what is the last point? EU and China faster growing markets. So yeah, this is more from a Vietnam point of view. So we see that China and EU are growing pretty steeply, and the US is kind of where it always is. But with a strong dollar, that could negatively impact the demand from China and from EU. And I believe that's the last one. Yeah, it is. Yeah. We made it, guys.
Thank you so much, Arjen.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll talk more later about the increased intervention from USDA. Thank you so much. So, yeah, I would like to invite Mr. Wim Schipper for the insights on the European market. Thank you so much.
So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Wim Schipper and I represent Intersnack. Intersnack is a snack manufacturer with factories across Europe, but also in Australia and New Zealand. And in the group, we have 5 cashew processing plants in Vietnam and in India. So happy to take you through some European demand figures. The first one. Okay, so what do you see here is the composition of the nuts and snacks, nuts and seeds category. The positive news here is that the noble nuts, in which is cashew, is still the biggest share. And you see also there is growth. And so the total category is growing, say, 3% year on year from 22 to 23. Noble nuts is a bit lagging behind with 2.8%, but still growing. And nut mixes is also lagging behind. We see a lot of cashew also being used in nut mixes. Remarkable is the growth here of peanuts. Because for many, many years, consumers in Europe favored all kinds of nuts over peanuts. Peanuts was considered, the cheaper alternative. Guess what? Inflation now goes on. The consumers make more affordable choices in the retail shop. And so they choose indeed for peanuts. And we come back to that later. Okay. So you see here on the left side, this is Nielsen figures only for 18 European countries, not included the UK, not included Germany. But for us, what is most important is the trend figures. So you see here a slight volume increase, 2.5%, which is in line with the 2.8 we saw for the European 30 countries figure. And also remarkable here for Cashew is we see here a price increase. Now all of you will think, okay, how can that be possible? Because we are at the lowest price level in many, many years. But guess what? When you look at the bill of materials, the cashew expressed in US dollar is declining. The rest is only increasing because, we are in the Eurozone and the dollar, what Arjen said, is stronger. And so also expressed in euro, the cashew is more expensive. But it's not only the cashew, it's also energy. Everything is connected to energy. It is the packaging materials. So in spite of a very, very historical, basically low cashew price, still the price per kg is increasing. Yeah. So here is an overview of these Europe 18 countries. What is a bit scary is that in the biggest markets, here is France and the Netherlands, we see a volume decline. Yeah? Okay, very encouraging, of course, is in the other, there's a volume increase, in the other, also the smaller markets. And so Italy showing a big increase here of almost 20%. And so, but all in all, these consumption figures are more or less in line when you look at the export figures from Vietnam to Europe. Then our marketeers, who I'm very grateful, to get some slides, they sent me also these slides. What is important going forward? Because the rest is nice history, but what can we expect for the future? And that is that inflation will still go on. Because in spite of lower vegetable oil prices, which really spiked with the start of the Ukraine war, that came down. Energy levels came down. But now what are we facing? That the workers want to have price compensation for the inflation. So there is still the inflation threat keeps carrying on. Yeah? Then when we go to 4, private label will be more important, which is sometimes, it's a good development. On the other side, you don't see a lot of innovation power in private label. They are more the followers. Yeah? So where is the category leadership also when we talk about cashew? Then in 5, the point 5, growth beyond price, is that very often people look at value development. But we are in this commodity, so we know that it is all about the volume trends. But people can be distracted because they say, oh, the market grew tremendously. Yeah, it is not always. You need to look behind those figures. Then coming back to number 2, which says a growing consumer resilience, is that confronted with, say, household budget cuts, and after the start of the energy crisis, some households in the Netherlands, where I live, saw energy bills €400 a month, only for gas, for heating your house. So they need to cut somewhere their spends. So what do we know? Because Intersnack sells expensive snacks, but also basically the discount snacks. So we see more sales of cheaper snacks. And this is how consumers cope with increasing prices everywhere and not, you know, at the same rate increasing income. That links also to number 3, calculated spending. Now there also marketeers say there will be more in-home spending, at-home spending. And that of course is an opportunity for our business. We have seen that in the COVID years, people were not, you know, they did not go to restaurants, to cinemas, no. They were Netflixing at home and also snacking at home. You know, so that is an opportunity for our category there. And here is some research on the buying intention for private labels, you know, from the UK, Germany and France. And after some years with, okay, a quite kind of stable number of buying intentions, in 2023 we have seen that there is much more intention to buy private label products and also to buy with discounters. And again, you know, the number of nuts being sold under an A brand is not that big. Yeah? The majority, it is dominated by private labels. So that it is, in one hand, it is good, but okay, it is also a threat for those remaining brands in our category. And these brands are really needed to drive demand and to drive innovations there. Oh, and this was my last slide. I think questions will come later. Yeah?
Thank you so much, Dave. So I saw some notes about the UK. So we stay in Europe and dive more into the UK market. So I would like to invite Mr. Robert Tinsley. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be as brief as possible in the 5 minutes that we've got here to have a look at the UK market. A lot of the points that Wim's already made ring true for the UK as well. Obviously, being one of the well-established markets, we don't see too much change in the overall figures of consumption, but rather it's a change in what that consumption is. Economically, we've seen some improvements in the last year. We've seen the core inflation go down to 5%. Food inflation is down to 8%. They're both still extremely high, but this is a half of last time that I was presenting last year. Retail sales are significantly down. They fell at their fastest pace since January 21 in January 24. Interest rates are stable, but we're not going to see any significant decrease for some time because the Bank of England has got serious fears about reducing those interest rates too quickly, because then you get an inflationary pressure after that. Not just in the UK, but across all of our EU business. We've seen... sorry. So we move on to industry issues. Not just in the UK, but across all of our EU business. We saw a spate of pesticide issues in 2022. They've been largely resolved. However, by resolving those issues, we've had infestation issues. And this poses a huge problem for the rise in natural consumption in the UK. It's expensive to solve the problem. It's cheaper to invest in good fumigation at origin. When we look at the margins that the traders, the roasters, the packers are making in the UK, they're extremely slim. I think everyone has this expectation that everybody is making huge margins and not passing them back to origin. It's not the case in the UK. Everyone is working for 2%, 3% maximum. And when you tie into that the cost of interest now, the cost of the problems that we see, nobody's making any money. Business is extremely competitive, and at every level we're seeing financing, freight increases, labour shortages, all having an impact on the UK industry as a whole. Wim touched on this before. There's a real lack of innovation within the UK at the moment, unfortunately. People are looking towards the private label more and more, but that doesn't come with any new innovation in products. It's all about price capacity. So this is the slide that everyone really wants to see, is the imports and export figures out of the UK. The net figures, as you can see, despite some ups and downs, for example, Brexit in 2019 having a huge increase, generally there's a slow but gradual growth in consumption. As said, being that this is a very well-developed market, I would say that's actually something that's quite promising. If you get 1% increase in a very developed market, that's a good thing for the overall consumption of cashews. One key figure to note is the increase in the imports from the Ivory Coast. We've seen that jump to 712 tonnes, which in a world volume term is not huge, but for the UK it's quite significant. As I said before, the consumption's changing rather than rapidly increasing or decreasing. And we'll move on to the next slide, where you can see the reason for this is the changing consumer habits. Veganism's quickly on the rise in the UK. We think there's about 2.5 million people maintaining a strict vegan diet now. That's up 1 million people in a year. Simultaneously, there's 3.1 million people who are having a vegetarian diet, and overall, when you include pescatarians, we think there's about 16% of the UK population is now meat-free. Not just for cashews, but for every nut product, this is a good trend for us. There's a growing cultural spread from London to other cities. Even where I live in Liverpool, traditionally, everyone who lives in Liverpool was born in Liverpool. And that's not the case anymore. Now we're seeing that spread of different cultures coming into other cities, and that's changing the consumer habits as well. For example, there's a stereotype of an Englishman in a pub with a packet of peanuts. That's changing. There's now late-night coffee shops, dessert shops. That's changing the habits of people consuming. And so what I would say is that we see the high-end market in the UK growing. We see the low-end market growing, as Wim said before. People who are looking after their budget are going into the hard discounters, your Aldi's, your Lidl's, these kind of superstores, and they're looking for the value ranges. We don't see growth in the middle sector. The middle sector, your normal W320s, roasted and salted, that consumption's down, but the growth is coming from the bottom, and the growth is coming from the top. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you so much. Finally, we have a gentleman waiting online, Mr. Saccoccio from New Zealand. If he's still there, please. Yeah. Okay, you are live. You are live now, please. Go ahead.
I think Ravi's going to start the presentation.
Yes, you're audible now.
Yeah, it's okay now. Please go ahead.
Yes, this is opening slide. Thanks for having me. Yeah, apologies for not being in Cambodia. I would have really loved to have come, but this is the wrong timing for myself personally. Next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
Yeah, just a little bit about Scalzo Food Industries, where I work. We're based in both Australia and New Zealand. We have 2 production facilities in Melbourne, Australia, and 1 in Auckland, New Zealand. We are an importer. We're a roaster and salter. We supply directly to the supermarkets, and we also are the factory on behalf of some major brands in Australia. So we cover pretty much all markets in both countries. Next slide, please. Yeah, so per capita, Australia and New Zealand are amongst the highest consuming cashew countries in the world. I think Australia's population is significantly smaller, for example, than the UK, but our import statistics are only slightly behind the UK for some perspective. Most of the volume is heavily directed in the supermarkets. It would be private label, just like our European and UK presentation. There'd be in large bags in the fresh produce sections of the supermarkets. There's also smaller bags in the, or smaller packs in the grocery sections in the supermarkets. But the big volume is definitely in the fresh produce sections. It's roasted, all roasted and salted is the main grade. The ingredients markets in both countries is quite small. I'd say dips. You know, you get a biscuit, as per the picture there, you dip it in at a barbecue or something like that. That would be the main market, and also I'm guessing the same as Europe and the UK and other markets. Small cashew pieces has become a cheap replacement for pine nuts in pesto sauces as well. In terms of ingredients, it's pretty static. We have almonds and macadamias in Australia specifically, and they get used, especially the almonds, in a lot of different products in terms of bakeries and savoury and cooking sections. So yeah, cashews really lag behind in terms of ingredients. Next slide. Okay, so this is just some perspective. We monitor all tree nuts for an industry body in Australia called Nuts for Life. Peanuts consumption is significantly larger, and with the cost of living pressures, peanut consumption is on the rise in both Australia and New Zealand. But as you can see, the past 3 years, almonds is the #1 product in Australia, followed by cashews, and the cashews is heavily directed towards the snacking type situation. The biggest grades in Australia are W320 and splits, and the splits are only become a big grade because they get blended with the W320s to hit certain price points for the retailers. Small pieces and baby bits are used for the dips, which I mentioned in the previous slide. Australia specifically has a large number of ethnic wholesalers, so Lebanese, Turkish, Greek, Italian wholesalers, especially in Melbourne and Sydney. And you know, you go to the airport in Dubai, the cashews and the apricots and the almonds are big and beautiful, and it's the same with these wholesalers. They buy the large W210s, W180s. They also buy SPs to make the, you know, to supply to the people who make the baklava. So that's a big grade in Australia. And SK1s and DW are used for chocolate coating and honey coating and these type of things. I don't think organics is a very big market, and I think, like Arjen said in an earlier presentation, you know, once everyone wants all the fancy stuff, but once the cost of living pressures kick in, everyone goes back to price, and that's definitely what's happened in Australia over the past few years. And in the bottom left corner, I've got the import statistics. 2023, I don't think that's a full statistic. It should be getting similar to the 2022 numbers. But what drives the statistics is purely price and the major supermarkets' appetite to move volume instead of perhaps making a high percentage profit. They're the main drivers in the market. Next slide. Yeah, it's a funny graph. It's been this way for some time. Pretty much all imports into Australia come from Vietnam. There is a tiny Australian crop, which is grown in the northern part of Australia, which gets exported, I'm guessing, to Vietnam, and then it comes back processed. But yeah, it's even before the decline of Indian cashew exports, Australia was always very heavily skewed towards importing cashews from Vietnam. So it's nothing new for Australia, and yeah, we've always been a big consumer from that part of the world. Next slide. This is 10-year history of the Australian dollar. We buy all cashew kernels in US dollars, and you can see it's closer to a weaker end than a stronger end at the moment. So although cashew kernel prices are hovering at quite low levels, in Australian dollars, it's not, between the exchange rate, the shipping rate, the interest and financing, it's not an all-time low in Australian dollars. Next slide, please. All right, the New Zealand market comparison. So New Zealand is very similar to Australia. The flag looks the same. We all play cricket. The main difference between Australia and New Zealand is they don't really have the ethnic wholesale market. So most of the volume in New Zealand is really in the supermarkets for snacking and the dips manufacturing. They don't have a huge population of Lebanese, Turkish wholesalers who buy multiple container loads of W210s, for example. But, you know, it's all relative. They've got Australia's population is 27 million people, New Zealand is 5.27 million people, and the imports are relative to that population. One thing that's a bit unique with New Zealand, in general, not just cashews, is they tend to import and use more products than they actually consume. They've got a very big manufacturing industry where they'll bring product in, they'll make protein balls or biscuits or other nice products, and they'll export it to the world. So they're a bigger importer of product than they are an actual consumer of product. Next slide. And here are the New Zealand import stats. There's a bit of Brazilian pieces for dips manufacturers there, and some Indonesian whole cashews too. It's a much smaller market, so it doesn't take too much volume from other origins to have a chunk of that pie chart. Next slide. Bit different to the 10-year Australian dollar history. The New Zealand dollar is actually a bit stronger at the moment in comparative to the Australian dollar. But that said, cashews still aren't at really an all-time low as such. Next slide. So yeah, this is something we do for our customers in all grades, showing the US dollar starting price and then the relation towards the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar. And at the moment you can see the blue line, which is the starting price, is quite far away from the grey and the yellow line of the Australian dollar and New Zealand dollar in terms of pure starting price. So just like the EU presentation earlier, the all-time lows aren't being reflected into the finished price to the consumer. And next slide. Yeah, so just a lot of suppliers and visitors come over to and think both countries are rich countries and such. Just for some perspective, I think Auckland, Melbourne, and Sydney are in the top 10 most expensive real estate cities in the world. And our cultures are that a lot of people have very large mortgages and huge debts. So it's we are in a first world country with first world kind of debts. So what that translates to is people are very careful about how they spend their money on food and drink and going out and what have you. And so yeah, that's what how cashews and other products are treated. All the best grades of everything usually go to other countries, and you know, we use the mid kind of tier grades, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I think I've covered most of those other things early on in the presentation. The last point there, because I think it was one of the questions, was why doesn't Australia and New Zealand have much of a African kernel imports? I think geographically it just doesn't make sense. I mean, if the world was doing sustainable shipping, you know, New Zealand and Australia would be buying from the closest major origin, and EU and the USA and these countries would be buying from their closest origin as well. So geographically it doesn't make sense for our markets, but it probably does for the big markets in the EU and the USA. And I think that's it. Next slide, please.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we don't have much time left actually. I will just ask one question and then we'll see if we have some questions over there. The question is going to be for Mr. Wim. So how do you explain the height of demand for African cashew on the European market? Though the price is a little bit higher than Vietnam. First question. Second question, how do you see the impact of the situation in Red Sea with demand from Vietnam?
Okay, first the question on African cashew kernels. Yeah? I see it is more a trading advantage that there is at the moment, because it's a shorter voyage, of course, than compared to Vietnam. I do not see a consumer preference there. Although people also are advocating it is a more sustainable product. We did recently also some research among, and that was a panel, consumer panel with a qualitative research, you know, that this type of argumentation, you know, comes really in place number 6, you know, in making a decision for some products. So basically, first and foremost is taste. That really counts. Yeah? That is most important. You know? And then it's also the appearance of the product. So these are the drivers for consumers to make a decision. So it is, of course, for importers, it makes sense to buy also from Africa. And then linked to your question about the Red Sea, that's also the explanation there, because we have been faced with the sea freight crisis from Asia. I think 2 years ago now. Everything, all these events come very, very quickly after each other. So I think that quite some companies, when they look at their portfolios, they will diversify. You know, they will balance out, okay, I will buy from Vietnam because of the reliability, because of the trading experience, because of the price. And I will also buy from, for example, the Ivory Coast, you know, to balance the books as a contingency measurement.
For Mr. Arjen, so do you see a kind of increase in demand from the US for African cashew?
I think that goes a little bit according to what Wim as well mentioned. So there is, but eventually from Vietnam, price competitiveness is, I don't know in what rank that was in the survey. Was there price competitiveness as well? Yeah, anyway, what we see in the US is that is a big driver. And so that Vietnam is still by far the big preference. Although we do see pickup in interest for cashews from Africa, if they have, you know, with stories, sustainability stories. Yeah, but eventually price is still leading, so, yeah.
For you, Mr. Tinsley, have you seen any difference with, let's say, the consumption in UK pre and post Brexit?
Not really, actually. What we've just seen is a shift in the way that the business is happening. So previously we would have, for example, brought a lot of product in from the EU that is already roasted, packaged for private label. Now, you know, the whole idea of Brexit was in order to keep the industry within the country. We've probably seen more economic challenges more than anything. But as I said in the presentation, demand is actually fairly stable, increasing 1–2% a year, and I think that's a positive sign for the UK.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you have a question over there. Any question? Yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for the panelists. That today is very good because, you know, like Cambodia was from the start, and we know that we produce a big kernel. And my question is to the US, because you mentioned about like the big kernel should go to China, and then the small kernel should go to US market. So my question, you know, when I went to US, we can see that in the Costco, we see that our Cambodian cashew kernel there, you know, yeah, that product of Cambodia packed in somewhere else. I don't want to talk. That is, what you think in the future that you think that the big kernel can be in US market or not? And another question is to the UK and Europe, because next month probably, next month, yes, I will go to UK. There's a support from UK. And you know, like Cambodia, we have a big potential, not only the kernel, the big kernel, but we have a potential to have organic cashew nut and environmental friendly, things like that, you know, we have. So we would like to get your advice. So in the future, the product like this, like organic cashew nut, environmental friendly, social fair trade, things like that, you know, it will be more market in US and Europe or not? Thank you.
So I didn't mean to say that Cambodian crop is not possible to move to the US. I think because of the nature of the RCN, you have a lot of 180s, you have a lot of 210s. You know, you could ship that to China in the Q4, let's say, with the testa and the salt, the traditional Asian way of eating it. So I think there is a good opportunity because China is willing to pay higher price compared to US or EU for at least what we see. But in, you mentioned Costco, I believe. Yes, no, of course, the 240s, surely. There is a big 240 market in the US. So I do see potential for Cambodia to enter that market as well. But then again, this will come down to the price that you offer. Are you able to compete with what Vietnam is offering? I think that is a challenge for Cambodia. Yeah.
Something to say?
So in regards to the organic market and looking at those potentials, actually the organic market in the UK is shrinking a little bit, and that's down to consumer spending. At the end of the day, there has been a rise in the natural consumption, as I mentioned, and that's seen us import more products from West Africa, where you've got a whiter colour, you've got a higher quality. But I use myself as an example, okay? My mortgage ends in April, and it is at 1.2%. It's going to move to 5%. I've got less money in my pocket to spend from April forwards. So, yeah, of course, in the future, with the rise in veganism, vegetarian, consumer spending, you might see a growth, but it's going to take a long time. We need to get over the economic issues that we're going to face for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and then we can see that rise.
Thank you so much. I think time is off. So thank you so much, Mr. Wim. Thank you, Mr. Arjen. Thank you, Mr. Robert. And thanks also. Okay, Mr. Saccoccio. Sorry. Thank you so much over there.
Thanks for having me.
So thank you to the audience as well. I wish you to enjoy the rest of your day, and those who are traveling, please, safe trip. Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, with this we conclude the final session. I would like to request our chairperson, Mr. Valentin, to also present a memento to each one of our speakers who have graced the stage with us this morning. A big thank you to Mr. Schipper. Let's have you up here, sir. Mr. Valentin, presenting a memento. Now I'm sure this is the moment when Mr. Robert Saccoccio wishes that he was here in person as well. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay with us. We have a very special announcement coming up by Dr. Adama Coulibaly. A big thank you to Mr. Arjen Ruggenberg. And thank you so much, Mr. Robert Tinsley. Gentlemen, may I request all of you to kindly stand up and please pose for a picture in the middle of the stage. All the panelists along with the chairperson. In order to present a memento to our chairperson for the session, Mr. Valentin, I would like to invite our lovely friend in the audience, Mr. Siddharth Zante of Zante Cashew. Let's have a round of applause for him, please. So ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, our mementos are beautifully handcrafted pieces that you get to take back home. Angkor Wat. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Valentin, sir. Mr. Valentin, please stay back on the stage. As you know, we have a photographer who's very enthusiastic about the thumbs up video. So please stay on the stage and let's shoot that video. So all the thumbs out together at the count of 1, 2, 3. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, a big thank you to all of you. Thank you, Mr. Saccoccio, for joining us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to do the concluding remarks for the World Cashew Conference 2024. But before that happens, I would like to invite on stage Dr. Adama Coulibaly, who has a very special announcement to make.
Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. J'ai juste 2 annonces à faire. Vous avez entendu hier le président de l'Association des exportateurs de cajou de Côte d'Ivoire qui a annoncé les journées nationales de l'exportateur de cajou. C'est dans 2 semaines, in 2 weeks, in Abidjan. I invite all of you to come to this event. La deuxième annonce, c'est le CIETA 2024. C'est le salon des technologies des équipements qui aura lieu en novembre prochain. Les inscriptions seront ouvertes à partir d'avril et nous espérons que vous serez tous à Abidjan pour faire aussi de cet événement un grand événement comme les éditions précédentes. Merci à tous ceux qui ont déjà collaboré avec nous pour organiser ces événements. Merci pour continuer de soutenir cet événement. Et c'est pour ça que nous vous attendons à Abidjan, terre de cajou et donc terre de prospérité pour les acteurs mondiaux du cajou. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Dr. Coulibaly. And with this, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Srivatsava Ganpati of Eventel to deliver the concluding address and the vote of thanks for the World Cashew Convention 2024.
Thank you very much, Ruchika. I will not take more time. Let me quickly run through this key outcomes over the last 3 days. When it comes to raw cashew nut, overall supply expected to be good, stable, and slightly ahead of demand. One flag is be cautious about deforestation and cashews cultivated in deforestation. We do not want one more negative aspect to be casted on this sector. When it comes to RCN processing, Vietnam would continue to dominate and go more towards deep processing, as we have already been seeing in the last 3 years. Despite challenges, processing will bloom in Africa thanks to progressive policies, initiatives such as ARISE. Although at the current market prices, there are challenges to operations. There is a very clear focus a need for developing domestic market going forward as a part of sustainability initiative in origin-based processing. Regarding competition and cooperation, the need was emphasized on government, private sector and development sector to work together to coordinate more, collaborate more. There was also concerns raised on the value skew in the value chain currently and the challenges that it puts on the farmers and the sustainability of the sector itself. This is something which needs to be addressed. There was a need felt for the global body to promote cashews, standardize contracts on RCN and kernels, and also exchange information in a more organized and systematic way. When it comes to technology, there's been major improvements in technology insofar as reduction in brokens, dealing with issues concerning unpeeled, partially peeled, and also food safety related aspects like non-chemical pasteurization, grading and sorting for market specific needs. And also there was an illustration of a new model of collaboration between a technology provider and a kernel marketer. The last session on the kernel markets, we have seen why Europe has grown, what are the challenges in US, and also the opportunities in China. If I have understood rightly, for the next 3 to 5 years, China offers a huge scope for growth. Perhaps we couldn't have anybody from Middle East. I would probably Middle East also could be another region where we might have better opportunities. 4 MOUs were signed. First one is between Cambodia Cashew Federation and USAID on increasing exports from Cambodia. The second one from Cambodia Cashew Federation and GIZ Cambodia on building capacities, improving operational capabilities. The third one is between Cashew Nut Association of Cambodia and African Cashew Alliance, especially on yield improvement program and farmer income enhancement. And the final one between the Cotton and the Cashew Nut Council of Cote d'Ivoire with All India Cashew Association on streamlining trade practices and supporting. With this, these are the broad outcomes of the conference. It's time for me to deliver my vote of thanks. Please allow me to deliver the vote of thanks. At the outset, we express our deepest gratitude to His Excellency Dr. Onpon Monirot, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Honorable Kingdom of Cambodia, for his gracious presence at the inaugural ceremony and accepting our invitation and opening this 10th edition of World Cashew Conference in 2024. We also place our deepest gratitude to Her Excellency Madam Cham Nimor, who is Honorable Minister of Commerce, Kingdom of Cambodia, and also His Excellency Ministry of Agriculture, Fishery and Forest, His Excellency Minister of Industry, Science, Technology and Innovation, His Excellency Minister of Environment, for their presence and for their guidance for making this conference a very, very successful one. We also place on record our deepest gratitude to Dr. Adama Coulibaly, Director General, Cotton and Cashew Nut Council, Ivory Coast, Government Representative from Mozambique, Nigeria, Ghana, India, Vietnam, the presence of CICC, Mr. Andre. We have the ACA head here, Dr. Adis Tola Faseru. Thank you, sir. And we have such distinguished persons who has always been supporting. We really place our sincere thanks to each and every one of the people from government, industry associations and trade bodies. We also thank all our sponsors, partners and supporting bodies. There were 25 sponsors, 11 supporting bodies, 6 partners who have made this conference a really enjoyable one for all of us. We thank all the exhibitors, and also special thanks to CMB for making this expo happen despite several challenges. Hope the delegation from Cambodia felt that useful, and others also had some interesting idea to take away from there. I express my deepest gratitude to all the members, enthusiastic members of Cambodian Cashew Federation, starting with leader Mr. Andara, Mr. Laikong, we have Lina, we have Paul, we have Honam. So there are so many, there are at least 15 to 20 people who have been working tirelessly, coordinating with various ministries for the last 1 month under the leadership of Mr. Dara. So we thank you very much, Mr. Dara and Cambodia Cashew Federation, because whatever you have seen in the last 3 days couldn't have been possible without this collaboration with the local partners, CCF and CAC, Cashew Nut Association of Cambodia is our partner. If you have had excellent time during the farm visit, all the credit goes to them for the way in which they've organized that. If some of the people who are progressive people whom we have seen display here, the grafting, what you are seeing here, it's all because of Cashew Nut Association of Cambodia. So we thank Mr. Silot and Mr. Soikoktin from Cashew Nut Association of Cambodia. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. We thank our partner GIZ MOO, GIZ Cambodia and European Economic Advisory Service for the 31st January special program for the Cambodian cashew sector. Without their support, we couldn't have organized that exclusive program wherein 35 people participated and benefited through an interactive session. And that outcome, we believe, would go a long way in strengthening the cashew sector in Cambodia. We thank GIZ MOO and GIZ Cambodia and EEAS for that. Special thanks as a part of that program to all the eminent speakers, Mr. Jim Fitzpatrick, Mr. Shaktipal, Mr. Lucas Balman, and Mr. Chenda Kyo. Because it takes enormous amount of preparation to put together that program, and they have really customized the program for the delegates. It was over 2 months preparation which has resulted in that program. Again, thanks to GIZ MOO, TECHNOSERVE, Prosper Cashew, USAID for launching the 5th edition of Cashew Women Handbook yesterday, wherein we have presented 35 global leaders in cashew. It is indeed a privilege for us to continue this work, wherein so far about 160 women leaders from across 27 countries have been profiled. We hope in future, they will inspire many more people in each of the regions and help the sector grow in terms of diversity and inclusion. We have on the first day over about 650 delegates, almost about 100 people from the government of Cambodia here to witness how rich this sector is and what is the potential opportunity for Cambodia. We thank all the 500 delegates that are part of World Cashew Conference and also 150 delegates from government who have made this event very, very enriching experience for each one of us here. I thank the hotel staff for their hospitality, for the special arrangements in food, because we had put a lot of pressure on them to see that when they include Indian food, and they have taken it very, very nicely, and they have tried their best, and it was an enjoyable experience for all of us. To the audio-visual crew for their flawless performance throughout the last 3 days. To the photography and the video crew for trying to capture every moment and making it very special, so that these are the memories, if you look back after 5 years or 10 years, you become nostalgic and And last but not the least, to all my team members, you have seen 13 people here. There are many more who have worked at our office. To all of them, I place my sincere thanks. We will place the photographs and the presentations by next Wednesday. The videos will take a little longer, but I hope we will do that one as quick as possible. We will also put a proceedings within 15 days so that it becomes a good documentation for future. With this, I conclude my speech, and I wish you, each and every one of you, a safe and a profitable season ahead. Good luck and all the best to you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Srivatsava Ganpati. Sir, with this, we conclude the WCC 2024. Thank you so much for your enthusiastic presence throughout the 3 days. Please keep up the love, support, and passion. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next year. For now, I request everyone, if you have headsets, please deposit them before you exit the hall. Have safe returns back to your home bases, to your countries. If you're staying back in Siem Reap, well, do visit Angkor Wat. We'll catch you today evening at Pub Street. Thank you and have a good day ahead.